It's wild to think, but Mexico City has sunk more than 32 feet since the early 1900s. That's like swallowing a 3-story building whole. The legendary Estadio Azteca, host of the 2026 World Cup, now sits precariously balanced on this ancient, waterlogged ground. Picture building a metropolis on a giant, soggy sponge. That's the reality here, with the original lakebed floor lying over 30 feet below modern streets. Venice, for context, sinks a mere 0.08 inches annually, so Mexico City's descent truly makes geologists sweat. The main culprit is the ground itself. This ancient lakebed clay is up to 70% water by volume, behaving less like soil and more like jello. For 22 million residents, it's a daily engineering nightmare. Things got much worse after engineers drilled over 10,000 wells, essentially draining the aquifer that was holding the city up. This massive water extraction to serve a city now home to over 22 million people creates a void underneath. The Angel of Independence monument, they've added 23 extra steps to its base just to keep pace. Geologists describe this groundwater-related subsidence as catastrophic. Even the city's metro system, a marvel from 1967, now undulates like a roller coaster because of the shifting earth. All this weight, an estimated 1 trillion tons, presses down on that fragile, waterlogged clay. The city is literally built on a historical paradox, an Aztec capital on a lake, rebuilt by the Spanish, and now a modern marvel sinking into its own past. By 1325 AD, Tenochtitlan swelled to 200,000 people, 4 times the size of London at the time. How did they pull off an impossible dream city on a lake? The Mexica arrived in a swamp, but prophecy guided them to build where an eagle ate a serpent perched on a cactus. Genius? Absolutely. They engineered floating farms called Chinampas, woven from reeds and layered with rich lake mud. Picture them as incredibly fertile rafts. To link this island metropolis to the mainland, they built 3 massive causeways, some stretching up to 8 miles. This was no random settlement. It was a meticulously planned miracle, a grid more organized than anything we see today. And water? 2 enormous aqueducts, each over 3 miles long, supplied fresh water daily. They weren't just living on water, they were master hydraulic engineers. To anchor this entire floating marvel, they drove over 100,000 wooden piles, 10 meters deep, into the squishy lakebed. That's like sinking a 3-story building into mud before you even start building. On top of this submerged forest, they layered Tenochtitlan, a lightweight volcanic rock, creating a foundation both stable and surprisingly buoyant. What an astonishing feat of urban planning, entirely in sync with water. Back in 1325 CE, 200,000 square kilometers, that's the imperial reach of Tenochtitlan, all dictated by a divine eagle, serpent, and cactus. This lake-bound island choice wasn't accidental. It was a profound prophecy shaping Aztec destiny. Their patron god, Huitzilopochtli, had a very specific vision. Find an eagle, mid-meal with a serpent, perched on a nopal cactus. Any modern geotechnical report would label this site catastrophically unsuitable. For 200 years, the Mexica people wandered as the despised nomads of the Valley of Mexico before finding their promised land. Legend says the cactus grew from the buried heart of Copil, Huitzilopochtli's nephew, whom he had defeated and sacrificed there. Talk about a cursed foundation. Finally, they found it, a tiny snake-infested island nobody else wanted in Lake Texcoco. The Golden Eagle's 2-meter wingspan made the sign unmistakable, a divine billboard wider than a human is tall. For them, the serpent wasn't just lunch. It represented the earth and darkness being defeated by the eagle, a symbol of sun and light. Talk about an upgrade. The challenge was immense, a lake system covering 1,500 square kilometers, nearly twice the area of modern-day New York City. Some historians argue it was less prophecy, more propaganda, a stroke of political genius to justify a strategically defensive location. Surrounded by water, the island was a nightmare to attack. giving the upstart Mexica a secure base to raid their powerful neighbors. This moment, real or mythologized, became the founding seal of their identity, an image now central to Mexico's national flag. Tenochtitlan boasted 120 miles of watery highways, a canal network that fueled a city more populous than any European capital of its time. These weren't floating gardens in the romantic sense, but hyper-stable artificial islands constructed by piling mud and vegetation within man-made fences. Picture this: weaving a sturdy frame, filling it with rich lake floor mud, then planting willow trees to anchor the corners. This fertile system yielded up to 7 crop harvests annually, a rate of food production almost unheard of. It was the ultimate organic farm, self-irrigating, constantly fertilized by dredged mud, and organized with obsessive grid-like efficiency. This agricultural miracle transformed a useless swamp into an empire's breadbasket, a sprawling green city built on pure ingenuity. These gardens fed an estimated 200,000 people, creating a metropolis larger than London or Paris. The canals between them formed 120 miles of navigable waterways, giving Tenochtitlan 4 times more than contemporary Venice. This network of Chinampas covered a staggering 9,000 hectares, creating an agricultural powerhouse larger than Manhattan Island. It was ecosystem building, with canals acting like arteries, bringing life to a perfectly engineered urban organism. The entire system was laid out on a near-perfect grid, a testament to Aztec order. Protecting this freshwater system was the Dike of Nezahualcóyotl, a 16-kilometer engineered barrier, basically a city-sized water filter. This wall separated the city's freshwater from unusable lake water. Sluice gates gave Aztec engineers precise control, demonstrating hydrological mastery that created a stable, self-contained world. 3 major causeways, some 14 meters wide, broad enough for 10 horsemen to ride abreast, connected it all to the mainland. Talk about an urban plan. November 8th, 1519. 500 Spanish adventurers stepped onto the causeway into Tenochtitlan, a city of over 200,000. Imagine a pocket knife against a laser cannon. The odds were literally 400 to 1. Bernal Diaz, one of them, described seeing things never before heard of, or seen, or even dreamed about. They'd sailed across an ocean expecting who knows what. Instead, they found a metropolis so advanced it made European capitals look like mud huts, with gleaming towers, vast organized markets, and impossible engineering. Emperor Moctezuma II, seen by millions as divine, met them personally. This spectacle was laced with terror. The Spanish arrived with just 13 muskets and 4 tiny cannons, but their steel armor and war horses, totally alien technology. Moctezuma, perhaps to smooth things over or just being hospitable, showered them with intricate goldwork. It felt less like diplomacy and more like chumming the water. They were housed in Moctezuma's palace, a gilded cage, but they knew they were in a powerful, potentially hostile land. This awe turned to dread when they saw the Templo Mayor, its steps stained dark from human sacrifice. One account chillingly mentions a skull rack at some pantry holding over 136,000 skulls, an industrial monument to death. Within a week, on November 14th, the ultimate betrayal, they kidnapped Moctezuma. For 8 surreal months, the Aztecs lived under their captive emperor, while the Spanish pulled the strings. Then, chaos erupted. Lieutenant Pedro de Alvarado ordered a festival massacre, slaughtering 600 unarmed Aztec nobles during a sacred dance. (1521), the year Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital, was systematically dismantled, its vibrant, enchanted vision becoming building material for a new colonial empire. The brutal siege raged for 93 days. Cortes, with 900 Spaniards, commanded over 100,000 indigenous allies, a staggering human wave against a desperate city. To conquer this island metropolis, they built 13 brigantines from scratch. Right there. Warfare became apocalyptic on the causeways, a deadly bottleneck. Imagine 15 square kilometers of a thriving island city, leveled. That's bigger than Venice today. They had an efficient recycling program, Aztec temples became the bedrock of new churches. Their grandest pyramid, the Templo Mayor, was so thoroughly erased its location was lost for 450 years, only found again in 1978. From its rubble rose the Metropolitan Cathedral, a very loud statement. But the real siege weapon? Disease. Smallpox alone decimated an estimated 40% of the population before the final assault. One Aztec chronicler lamented, "And all was sorrow, we were crushed to the ground. The causeways, the city's arteries, were methodically destroyed, cutting off escape. On August 13, 1521, it all ended with the capture of Cuauhtémoc, the last emperor. Millions of tons of stone from dismantled pyramids filled the lake, enough to build 3 great pyramids. That's a lot of history, buried and repurposed. Talk about a foundation for a new city." "30,000 lives vanished in the Great Flood of 1629. But history often forgets, the Spanish didn't just rebuild over Tenochtitlan, they actively erased the lake, turning solid ground into a precarious quicksand. Their magnificent cathedrals and palaces began sinking almost immediately, a clash between European architecture and Aztec geology. This new foundation wasn't engineered fill. It was a chaotic slurry of rubble, mud, and centuries of accumulated garbage. Building here was akin to balancing a cake on a giant wet jenny, a problem that sheer willpower simply couldn't solve. Each new structure added weight, squeezing water from the clay and accelerating the city's slow-motion collapse. The ground beneath Mexico City isn't soil. It's a supersaturated clay with 90% water content, behaving essentially like a liquid. Think of it like a geological crème brûlée, a brittle crust over a profoundly wobbly base. Their ambitious solution was the Desagüe, a massive drainage project begun in 1607 to empty the basin's lakes. This behemoth project spanned over 250 years, involving the movement of more earth by hand than all of the Panama Canal construction. Yet in their effort to stop floods by draining the lake, they inadvertently supercharged the very sinking they were trying to prevent. An epic geological self-own, frankly. Mexico City's Metropolitan Cathedral, construction on which started in 1573, sank unevenly for centuries. It wasn't until the 1990s that engineers finally employed sub-excavation to correct its tilt. Before that, the ground beneath its colossal 127,000-ton weight compressed relentlessly, much like a giant stepping on a soggy loaf of bread. Geologists discovered the clay compresses 10 times more than typical deposits under the same load. Mexico City pulls 70% of its water from deep underground, essentially drinking its own foundation. Imagine needing new front steps every few years because your house is sinking that fast. That's the daily reality. It's a cruel twist. A city built on a lake now faces constant water shortages, importing 30% from distant basins. This soft lakebed soil doesn't just sink, it acts like jelly, amplifying earthquake shockwaves by up to 500%. The 1985 earthquake alone saw over 400 buildings collapse in the old lake zone, claiming 10,000 lives. In some areas, the ground has dropped more than 10 meters in the last century. That's the height of a 3-story building, vanished. Your iconic Angel of Independence monument, built in 1910 at street level, now requires 23 extra steps at its base. This uneven sinking, or differential subsidence, tears buildings apart, snaps water mains, and wrecks subway lines. It's a constant, expensive battle. Some areas of the city sink 20 inches a year. That's like an entire car tire's height, disappearing annually. The city's foundation isn't just soil, it's saturated clay, with a water content up to 400% by weight. Creepy, right? The Palacio de Bellas Artes has sunk 4 meters since 1934, turning its original grand ground floor into a basement. This ground collapse creates a triple threat: constant sinking, infrastructure failure, and devastating water loss from broken pipes. Ironically, the 2026 World Cup stadium, Estadio Azteca, stands firm on a slab of ancient volcanic rock dating back to 250 AD. Engineers must constantly realign the metro system. It's like trying to keep a train set level on a deflating air mattress. Picture this. Estadio Azteca, home of legendary soccer matches, stands on land born from a volcano's fury around 280 AD. That eruption buried settlements from millennia past, creating an utterly unique foundation. The Chitli volcano unleashed lava covering over 80 square kilometers, averaging 10 meters thick, a disaster that completely smothered Quiquilco, a major ancient Mesoamerican center. What was left was the Pedregal, a vast, uneven expanse of solid volcanic rock. Building there in the 1960s meant carving out space, blasting and excavating a staggering 180,000 cubic meters of this hardened lava. Absurd, right? This colossal stadium, designed to hold 107,494 spectators when it opened in 1966, rests on that solid basalt. It's a stark contrast to the sinking lakebed mere kilometers away. Architects Ramirez Vasquez and Mijares Alcerica chose this impossibly stable ground for a critical reason: to avoid seismic disaster. Today, geologists use it as a benchmark, a rock-solid anchor to track the rest of the valley's sinking. It's the most stable patch of ground in a sinking metropolis, sitting right atop a 2,000-year-old eruption. The name Azteca itself is a deliberate echo of that ancient empire, built on land that predates even their civilization's height. The stadium's total weight surpasses 100,000 tons. That's like parking a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier on ancient lava. This site offers a foundation of 4 distinct historical and geological layers, a true urban palimpsest for a global sports arena. Some geologists even call it a perfect, if accidental, laboratory for studying extreme urban engineering. So, the ground beneath Estadio Azteca isn't just land, it's a stacked timeline of ambition, disaster, survival, and now, world-class sport. Nature essentially said, why not build here? Mexico City is about to become the first city ever to host the World Cup 3 times, after games in 1970, 1986, and now 2026. As this massive city gears up for its 3rd World Cup, the roars from Estadio Azteca will echo across ground truly saturated with urban evolution. Picture a fan in 2026, cheering on a spot where lava once flowed and an ancient civilization once stood. The collective roar of 87,000 modern fans will reverberate through rock born from the planet's own violent shout. This city isn't just surviving, it's hosting a party on a volcano, in a lakebed. Beneath the cheers of 87,000 fans lies the silence of a buried world, a ghost city under the modern grid. It's like running a CAT scan of the Earth here. You'd find Aztec obsidian, Spanish steel, and fiber optic cables all in one frame. This thirsty metropolis still pulls over 60% of its water from the ancient aquifer below, draining its own fragile foundations. The city's infrastructure is basically a modern operating system running on corrupted, 700-year-old hardware. Glitches are a feature, not a bug. The original Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, once held 200,000 people. Today, the modern megalopolis on its ghost holds over 45 times that number, a population exceeding 9 million. Every subway construction project turns into an unplanned archaeological dig, unearthing another piece of a puzzle no one can fully assemble. Officially, there are over 1,500 registered archaeological sites inside the city limits. Most remain completely undiscovered. The main square, the Zócalo, sits exactly where Aztec and Spanish power collided. Every stone there is a historical argument held in place.